Under, over, around, through, win, or it's the last thing you'll do. Today, I'm joined by the creative team behind the new indie horror Obstacle Corpse. God, I love that name. They're Hope Madden and George Wolf, and this is the first episode of 2023 of Slasher Sports Cinema.
And I'm here to kill you.
I am Dracula.
Say that I have shed innocent blood. What's blood for, if not for shedding?
6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face. The blackest eyes, the devil's eyes.
I like to dissect girls. Did you know I'm utterly insane?
Hope, George, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Appreciate it.
I'm very glad you are here. First thing, elephant in the room, Ohio State people. Okay, that's it's kind of a point of contention here at Slasher Sports. Okay, first and foremost, we were we kind of split our content between college sports and horror films, specifically indie film. But I think a lot of our listener base is going to take exception to you being Ohio State people. The Ohio State.
That's right.
That's right.
By the way.
That's
That's where you met?
No, we
No?
went to Ohio State at totally different times. I got there a few years before she did, but no, we worked together at the same bar and restaurant not far from the campus back in 1990.
Yep.
We
are both alum, though. We did
Yeah.
both graduate from Ohio State.
Sure. Well, there's a funny thing. Right now you're wearing a San Francisco 49ers ball cap, and I've got a little story. I told you prior to recording that I wanted to tell you this. Okay, just a few Christmases ago in my work office, we did kind of a secret Santa situation. Okay, we drew names, a pretty large team. We drew names, and this sweet lady named Lisa, she drew my name, and she's not a sports lady at all. Okay. And so I made my list and I made it clear I'm a Washington, at the time, Redskins fan, now Commanders fan, but I'm a Washington fan nonetheless. And this lady she was digging around trying to find what can I get Billy for Christmas. I got him. I don't know anything about sports. Well, bless her little pea picking heart. She came in having derived a certain thing from my Washington Redskins list and got me the nicest San Francisco 49ers scarf that anybody could ever get me. And I had to bear the winter wearing this every day as to not hurt her feelings.
That is now big of you. That is big.
It is huge of me. It is huge of me, considering the fact that, in some of my formative sports years, the Niners put us out of the playoffs, I believe, 92, 93-ish, when we started to hit that big decline.
Yeah, and then you put us out. I remember you put us out a couple times, as I recall. So back and forth, maybe.
A little bit of back and forth. I would say, though, the 4 Super Bowls from one single quarterback, and then another, two from Young, maybe?
One.
Just the one? Did they
Young.
make a second?
No,
they won one for sure.
They were always kept out by either the Cowboys or Brett Favre, but they got through one year and beat the Chargers in 94.
Okay.
And then, of course, with Kaepernick.
Yeah.
And, of course, with Cap, of course.
Yeah.
So, guys, I had a lot of fun with Obstacle Corpse.
Great.
And let me tell you, I love a good pun in a title. An Obstacle Corpse. It reminded me a little bit of like Chopping Mall.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, I had
that's
to, since she wrote the script, I had to come up with something. So I'll
Yeah.
take credit for that.
Yeah,
That was
the
mine.
title was his. And I remember
job
actually,
well done,
Thank you.
George.
I
Job well
remember
done.
he does come up with a lot of titles for different things that I write because he's just so much better at it than I was. And I remember when he was like, I can't, you're not ready. You're not ready yet. So he was pretty proud of himself from the very beginning with that title.
I feel like I would be the title guy in this in an outfit like
It's the
this.
easy part. She writes the script. I'll do the title.
But the title's what catches the eyes, right?
True. It's true.
Outside of the old movie case, if we're talking VHS.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, we know each other through Scott Bradley and Patrick Ray. Want to give both of those guys credit for making this unholy union happen today.
Good
So
news.
thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Scott.
Yeah.
Two former guests of Slasher Sports Cinema, and two fantastic guys. I really enjoy. I'm happy for the success that Patrick has had with They Wait in the Dark.
Yeah.
Fantastic
Definitely.
film that he's done. So when you made the short film Obstacle Corpse, let's talk about that for a second. Did you already have this battle royale approach in mind for a feature?
Yes, actually, it was a proof of concept short. The feature script already existed, so the goal with it was to get some practice and to use it kind of as a platform to raise money to make the feature.
Sure. So, I've talked to a lot of people who've made almost, a career of short film.
Sure.
And I've come to be, I guess, a little more drawn to short films lately. And I think maybe the younger generation of film viewers are going to be drawn to short films as well, because they can't seem to, put their Instagram away while they're in the movie theater. Or, short form factor filmmaking is probably something that's going to be bigger in the future. And you're kind of just getting ahead of it, by making short films. But do you think it's also one of those things where maybe there's I guess you get double, triple usage out of a short film? Because you just said it, you get to practice, right? You get to work through some of the kinks. Not only that, though, there are a lot of things a short film can be used for. There's the proof of concept, the old use the short film as the cold open of your feature, right? And you almost did that here. At least reshot it, right?
Yes.
So I just recently watched it was a Spanish film called Piggy. You may have seen this one very recently. Very good, right?
Love
good.
that. And the short, you're right. That short was magnificent.
The short drew me in, and unfortunately, I saw it when it was new. So I had to wait all these years to get the next thing. It's almost like watching your favorite, TV drama week to week. Who even does that anymore? Right? Who even does that? I remember watching 24, the Kiefer Sutherland drama, and having to watch it week to week, and it was just torture.
Yeah.
Torture waiting for that next week.
Yeah,
and
we're the same. We're the same way, because we saw Piggy here at the Nightmares Film Festival every year here in town, and we're so impressed.
Yes.
And we're so great when it made the feature film that we loved as well. Yeah.
Yeah, Laura Galan was the actress in that.
So good.
Oh, she's so good.
That alone made me a fan, and Carlota Pereda was just completely unknown in my mind at the time.
Yeah, we were not familiar with her either.
Right. So, I mean, like, why would you be in Spain if you don't already just have a presence in Spain, of all places?
Right.
Then you're just not going to know. But this short film that she did, probably, well, I can't speak for her, but I wonder if she had the same thing going on with, the thought, hey, I'm going to make this into a feature, and I'm going to use this 2015 teaser as a short film. And that's kind of what you did, though. But, it's, I have to ask you, though, like, there are a lot of characters, in this film.
Yeah.
But you kind of had other plans for the feature film Cold Open than what happened in the short film, right? So you had one part that was written for a specific person who was in the original short film. So let's talk about what you did to really nail down your casting for Obstacle Corpse.
Sure. So there's a character in the feature film that has always been intended for Donovan Riley Wolfington, who plays a chef in the feature film, and that he's our son, and that character has
Full disclosure.
Full disclosure, he's our son. He's the boy, and that character was always intended for him. But when we shot the short, for one thing, I feel like a short film has to stand on its own. I mean, it can't just be, I don't think, like a teaser for something else. I think I have tremendous respect for the short form just as a form unto itself, the same as I do for like short story fiction writing. I love, it's actually my favorite thing to read is short fiction. So we wanted to make sure that the short film fit, as a complete picture. And also, he's really good and he's available and free. So we wanted him to be in the short. So he does. He's one of the two actors who were in the short film, and the other, Kat McAlpine, who's a good friend of ours and a very talented actor. She plays the same role in both the short and the feature. But what I really loved when we shot the feature is that the actor Jim Foreman, who played Jester Hat, is the name of the character. In the feature film, took it in a completely different direction. So we worked a little bit on that, and he's a very comedic actor. Not strictly, he's a dramatic actor as well, but he, talking with Kat McAlpine and with Jim in advance of shooting, they liked the idea of going a little bit more comical in tone. And I thought that given that it wasn't a standalone, right? It was an introduction to a flat out comedy, right? The feature film is definitely a comedy. So we really liked that idea and kind of ran with it. So it is funny that our son plays two different roles, but I really actually liked the flavor that gave both the short and the feature.
Mm-hmm.
And did that final product match what you had in mind from the beginning? Probably not, right?
The final product, the feature, having the more comedic tone. Actually,
Sure,
I think when I wrote it, I thought it was funny, mean funny. the short, the opening segment, it's mean spirited, but I thought it was funny, and I had not done a lot of work with actors. In fact, I'd only shot one short before we shot the short version of Obstacle Corps, and that film only had one actor in it, and it was Kat McAlpine. So in all of my filmmaking up to that moment, I had only ever directed Kat McAlpine. And it's very interesting. I've written for years and years, for decades. And I was worried that I would be a bit controlling when it came to the way performers, sort of inhabited characters. And it turns out that I think my very favorite thing is to just see what they take from what they read. And it's fascinating to me how the way I see it play out in my head when I write it is different than what a reader brings to it, And so one of the things that I learned, luckily got the chance to learn we made 3 shorts before I made the feature, is to do that, to just listen to what the actors, they see in the characters. And actually, we did that. The film is a lot of small teams, right? And so
Sure.
In advance of shooting, we met via Zoom with each little team, every either group of 2 or group of 4, or sometimes like a group of 2 plus Donovan's character, or the guards, had the guards all sort of meet together. And that's instead of sort of conducting a rehearsal, we spent most of that time. I asked the actors what they thought, like, why do you think this guy is here? And who do you think decided to do this, and what do you think their motivations are? And
she did a great job with that. She really did, and letting people come to the table with their own thoughts. And you were the opposite of controlling. I think you let them sort of come up with it organically,
yeah.
And it was huge. She did a great job with that.
It benefited the film, I think, immeasurably, because so many of them, especially in pairs, they feel very lived in, the relationships between the characters, because the actors just got to decide so much for themselves about their backstory and bring it to the screen. And I'm really grateful, for that and for all that they did bring.
It takes a level of humility to outsource a job and then just let them play. I don't know if it's a level of humility that I have reached in my life, because I can't so much as have my sons help me clean the kitchen without telling them what to do and how to do it. And when you have like something so personal as like, this is your work, your name is on this, you know, when people think about Obstacle Corps, they're going to say, well, this is a MaddWolf production. MaddWolf is, you know, ultimately responsible for everything that happens. If somebody doesn't deliver, well, you know what? Maybe it's because the folks at MaddWolf don't know what the hell they're doing.
Sure, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But no, it takes a humble director, a humble filmmaker to do something like that, and trust the people that, you know, trust the talent, let the talent show their talent.
Yeah.
And I'll just tell you right now, Kat McAlpine is the real deal.
Yes, she
Yes,
is.
Well, we were blessed in that regard because they were tremendously talented.
Yeah.
And yes, you can see some of that in the audition process.
Yeah, for sure.
But once they're cast and you really get a chance to let them see, get a full range of what they can do. We were just tremendously blessed. The whole cast, top to bottom, just great.
Yeah, and it's a lot of people. That's 41.
Yeah, very big cast.
Yeah,
if you're
for a first production.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's just dumb. Is what it is. That is just dumb. But it worked out.
Her words, not mine. Not mine. But hey, you know, all's well that ends well, and it ended well. But yeah, you said it. There are a lot of characters in this film, but I would say that our top baby faces are going to be Sonny and Ezra. Okay, and I haven't spoiled anything thus far, and I suspect you won't either.
No.
But what can you tell me about Sonny and Ezra?
So, and it's funny. The two characters are based, or originally are based on two very dear friends of mine. The three of us used to share an open desk, right, at a company that I worked for, and they are such funny human beings, and they would have such funny and insane conversations that I would just write them down. Like, I'd stop what I was doing. I would just write down what these two people were saying. And so I drew a great deal from those exact conversations when writing the script. And I think for me, I think that's one of the reasons why the characters work so well, because they for one thing, they don't sound like me. And I think that's a big obstacle when you're writing, especially when you're writing so much dialogue for so many different people, is that you just say things you would say, and then all of a sudden 41 people just sound like you, the writer. And so I think that's one of the reasons that the two of them work so well, is because they said things I never could have come up with in a million years. So that was helpful. And then Sylvie Mix, who plays Sonny, you know, we'd seen her in two films, both of them shot here in Columbus, one that she produced called Double Walker, that Colin West directed, and then one called Poser. And she was the lead in both of those films. In Double Walker, she has essentially no dialogue. I don't know that she has any lines at all, but she's in, I think, every screen, every shot of that film. And she's so compelling, and she's such a natural performer. And then Ezra actually is the character we had the hardest time casting. We saw the most auditions for Ezra, and that character is so dear to me. And it was tough, I think, for a lot of the actors who auditioned, not all, but a lot of them, to figure out why he would do this if it wasn't because he was hoping to date Sonny, right? Why he would put himself through this race. And so then Alan Tyson plays Ezra. And I can't even tell you how perfect he was. He was so perfect. And I loved how well Alan and Sylvie's energy like balanced each other, because she's a bit dialed down, you know, and he's a bit broad and cartoony. And the two actors developed such a beautiful friendship and relationship and rapport during rehearsals that I knew that no matter what else happened, everybody would be rooting for Sonny and Ezra.
And funny story, one of the guys who also auditioned for that role and didn't get it, his wife ended up being cast in the movie, and he told her, well, I'm gonna hate whatever actor played Ezra. She says, oh, no, you won't. No, you won't. And he was joking. He was joking
when he said it. He's a lovely person, actually, and he came very close to getting the role, to be honest with you. But it is impossible not to love. And that was the most important thing. When people were reading the script in advance, the one most common thing I heard was, if you killed off Ezra, I was going to be so angry. And so what I needed was for the actor who played him to generate that much like, God, please let Ezra make it out of this okay. I'm not saying he does. All I'm saying is you're going to hope he does.
Right.
Well, it's funny because she doesn't have a very deep resume, and he is a theater guy.
He
Oh,
is,
yeah.
and he does a lot of commercials as
I know.
well. He's in a ton of commercials. She has now 3 feature films under her belt, and she's the lead in all 3. So that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
That in baseball, folks, is what you call batting 1,000.
Right.
That's right.
Right.
Okay, 3 for 3. But it is funny that you have such a range of, I guess, experience.
Yeah.
And as you have some people who've done has a ton of work under their belt, and some very brand new people.
Yeah.
And it seems like they meshed well. Ezra and Sonny do.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, why not? But have you ever done any of those mud runs, or like the Tough Mudder races?
Yeah, I do. I used to do them all the time. I've done a bunch of them. I haven't done a mud run in a while. I still do a lot of 5Ks, several 5Ks during the year, but I haven't done a.
How long you been insane?
That's an excellent question. But
Long
it's
time?
funny.
Okay.
It's funny that you asked that, because that's how the story came about. I was supposed to do one with him, and I wound up in a walking cast and wasn't able to. So I just followed along, and I think because I was really paying attention to sort of the weird sociological experiment.
You were people watching is what you were doing. Just call it what it is.
Yeah.
And what I kept thinking was it would be so easy to die on these. And then I thought, easier still to kill somebody. So that's really, honestly, that's how it all started. By the time we got home, I think I had the movie kind of outlined in my head.
Well, something that doesn't happen very often at these mud runs is having a deranged ice cream man stalking the woods with Choco Tacos and murder on his mind. So, I mean, with this role specifically written for Donovan, I guess we need to transition into just tell me what was going on with this character Mason.
I have a nephew, and he's an incredibly sweet, like, it's the sweetest person, has been since he was just a baby, the sweetest person. He has 2 little girls. He's the best dad, but he has a very bent sense of humor. And I was at his mom's house for Christmas several years ago, and he's a chef, and he was singing a Christmas carol that he reworded, and it was about murder. And right away I was like, oh yeah, this is a character right here. This is a guy I'm working into something. And then, as the sort of the beginnings of the script took shape, I am a big fan of a B story. Like I think a properly developed B story gives so much depth to a film. So like, for example, Nope, right? Nope. The B story with the chimpanzee and the actors, like that is such a brilliant piece of cinema, and it brings so much to the A story. So I thought there's sort of a theme in the primary story between between Sonny and her dad. And I thought, well, if I can sort of mirror that in a B story, that's what I'll do. And so that's really what happened is then I created kind of a whole separate story for his character. And then I found ways to just mash him up.
I dig that. I noticed the chef hat, but I thought it was an ice cream truck. I didn't know what the hell to think, guys. And I guess that's kind of the point.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
An agent of chaos. That's what he is.
Well, there you go. Mason, the agent of chaos. Now, I don't know if it was intended, but I had a lot of visions, and I probably do this to my own detriment, but I had a lot of visions of, I guess, some of my favorite niche films while watching Obstacle Corps. And I thought about The Warriors. Classic Walter Hill flick. Yeah. Because of the matching teams, with a few of the characters. Of course, that's also something that just happens on mud runs. You dress alike and you go bury your face in the mud with everybody else. But I did think about that opening scene of The Warriors, where you have all the gangs making their way to wherever the hell they were going, the big epicenter of the gang meeting,
Mhm.
where they were sending their 9 delegates, and you got the Hurricanes all wearing their tank tops and their fedoras, and you've got the baseball Furies in their face paint and the baseball uniforms, which I thought that's where you were going with a couple
Yeah,
of the
with the
characters.
baseball. Yeah.
And I'm just going to throw that out there. But now I thought about the Cannonball Run.
Oh yeah.
I don't
Okay.
like. There's just another one of those films that popped in mind, and I
Uh-huh.
could see some of those types of hijinks going on. Rat Race, Death Race, and a few others. But did you purposely pay homage to any of these films or any other films that maybe I didn't mention?
So I think the
It sounds like these are all original thoughts, though, and that's why I was kind of afraid of using the word homage. It
No,
seemed
yeah.
like this was 100% out of you, and
It kind of was, and I think at least tonally, what I think were touchstones for us were in terms of sort of like the, so tonally I would say sort of Battle Royale meets Caddyshack, and then
Okay.
visually our visual touchstone was very definitely Midsummer. So and now the Midsummer, the storyline doesn't bear any resemblance whatsoever to ours, but what
Visually.
I didn't want was a film, because it's so much of it is set in the woods, and I didn't want one of the sort of foreboding dark, I wanted it to look beautiful, fun, you know what I mean, like
Right.
nothing bad could ever happen. So visually, and Brooklyn Ewing was our DP, and she really worked hard to help us accomplish that goal. We wanted it to look a bit like Midsummer, but when it comes back to, there were a couple of things about the costumes. One is that, as you mentioned, people just wear costumes to these mud runs. One of the characters at one point says, "The last time I ran one, somebody was dressed in a full Chewbacca outfit." That actually happened. A guy came dressed as Chewbacca, which the whole time I'm like, you have to jump over fire. You're going to go right up. So, so that was, it was authentic, because people do dress up for these, but also it helps you create teams, help you remember who the characters are. And then it's
Who
just
they're
more,
paired with,
right. And then it's also just kind of more visually compelling if somebody's got a jester hat on for some reason. And of course,
You've got 90 minutes. You've got 90 minutes to establish some sort of order
Yeah.
with the rules that you've created for the universe you've dragged us into, right?
Mhm.
So when you put, matching costumes, you've already taken care of the compartmentalization
Mhm.
for the
Yep.
viewer.
Yep.
Maybe they unconsciously just know who's
Sure.
who.
Yep.
So we're not gonna think the clown is hanging out with a baseball player. Right?
Exactly.
We know who's who and who's going with what.
Exactly
Now,
right.
before we get too far, let me just say, you brought up Midsummer, and anytime someone brings up Midsummer, I am obliged to say I've given about 12 hours of my life to Midsummer, and I resent anyone who ever says it's a ripoff of The Wicker Man.
I agree with you. I mean,
Resent it.
There's a whole subgenre of that style of film. There really is, and
We love it so much.
and we love Wicker Man as well. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not going to take anything away from that movie, but yeah, what Ari Aster did with Midsummer was just brilliant.
It was, and you're talking about a film that just has two different points of view. One's a breakup film, and one is an abduction, maybe investigation.
Yeah.
And both have their monumental moments, and there's no Venn diagram other than the giant figure at the end that overlaps. That's literally it. You've got a cult, and you've got just a burning effigy. It's not an effigy. I can't think of what the word is, but not taking one more step. You've got a big event coming up on February 1st. You want to tell everybody about that?
We do. Film Scene, which is in Iowa City, on or near the campus of Iowa State.
No, University of Iowa.
University of Iowa. Sorry about that. University of Iowa. They have a late night program where it's a Grindhouse program, and they've asked to show our film there on February the 1st, 10 p.m. It's a Wednesday. So we're really excited actually to be a part of it, because I was looking at some of the other films that they're showing, and they're all great. And we're very honored to be a part of that. So we're going to go out and hang out with them and watch the movie.
Yeah, because we looked and said, "Oh, that's an 8-hour drive. We can do that."
Yeah.
So so we're going to be
We've never
there.
been, and we've heard great things actually about Iowa City. So
Yeah.
we're excited to go.
Iowa City's a great town, first of all. I love it. But I am pretty sure that, listen, just put yourself in their shoes. Okay. Someone mistakes, the Buckeyes for Miami, Ohio or something.
That's
I,
right.
Iowa State. Listen,
Sorry about
put
that.
me in. I'm talking trash. I'm trying to start something where there wasn't anything to be started. Listen, your first big screen premiere was back in October 2022. I would have put a timestamp on that because who knows when anybody's listening to this. But it's kind of a perfect time to premiere a spooky flick. What was the initial reaction to Obstacle Corps at the premiere?
It was great. I mean, it was we did have a home field advantage because not only was it here in our hometown where it was filmed, but also the debut was at Nightmares Film Festival in Columbus. We have been involved with that film festival for many years. We're on the jury. We volunteer. So the film was presented out of competition, obviously. But we had a hidden, or not a hidden, we had a built-in fan base, which was great, and it sold out. We had just a fantastic time. Couldn't have asked for a better reception. And it was we when we got married, we eloped on the beach, so we didn't have a big wedding. This is what it felt like because it was such a whirlwind. We didn't remember who we talked to. Did I talk to you last night? If I missed you, I'm sorry. And it was just a thrill. It really was a thrill.
Yeah, it really was.
That's fantastic. So put me in the theater. Put me in the theater there with you. You're surrounded by friends, maybe family as well. It's your first major film here, right?
Yeah.
What are you doing to combat the butterflies?
Well, that's a great question because
Yeah.
I really, I wasn't sure I would sit down at all because I thought I was going to throw up. I mean, really, for the days leading up to it, I thought I was going to throw up the whole time. I remember at one point, Jason Tostevin, who is the programmer at the festival and is also actually in our film and is one of our producers, he said something to me. He asked me a question and it had to do with kind of the logistics and what did I want to do. And I looked at him for a second. I go, I think I've had a stroke. And he was like, okay, I'm going to ask you later. Just go. But yeah, my family was in like a lot of my family was in. I have a big family. I have 5 siblings. And a ton of them were there, which was very kind because most of them don't like horror. And I asked my one nephew how my sister Ellen had done, how his mind. She go, oh, did you not hear her say eep every 5 seconds? And then there's George is actually in the film as well. And that's actually kind of a funny story about Jason and George both being in the film. But he's got one, and it's an ad lib. It's a physical comedy ad lib that he made that went over huge with this particular audience. They all turned around and laughed and laughed.
Yeah, so, I was floored.
It was, but it did. It was great. And also because Jason, everybody there, we had a lot of people actually came because they were there for the festival and they came as well. And I think they might've been surprised to see Jason Tostevin in the film. And he's got a pretty substantial part actually. And he just does a magnificent job in it. So that was, I think, a really fun surprise to launch on that audience as well.
And it's always interesting. By the time that premiere came along, we had seen the finished product in some form or another many, 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 many times. And until you're there with that big crowd, you think a line is funny. You think it's going to land, it's going to play, but you don't know for sure. And it's great to when people laugh and react and hoop and holler at places where you thought they would or you hope they would. So that's very, very satisfying.
I mean, to be perfectly
what about
honest,
the times?
So I was going to say, I got to see it. We did our world premiere at Horror Realm in Tucson, Arizona. And that came a couple of weeks prior to Nightmares Film Festival, but I was the only one who was able to go. So I saw it with a room full of strangers and they also liked it. They laughed where they were supposed to, but it was kind of a cheat because I didn't care for the sound mix. I turned out the first time I heard it in a theater.
It turned out to be a good thing.
It was. So
we got it fixed.
We did. We totally remixed the sound in time for Nightmares.
Because we had neither one of us had heard it on a big screen sound system before. So that was huge.
Yeah, it was.
Huge.
Well, you talk about not knowing if you're going to get a laugh or if you're not going to get a squeamish sound at the times where you think you're going to. But what about the reactions in parts that you didn't know there was going to be a reaction or you didn't think that there would be a reaction, but there was? I've heard that's equally as satisfying. And I believe it was my friend Reeves Elliott. I don't know. You may not be familiar with Reeves. He's a New York guy. but he wrote and directed The Secret of Cuck Island.
Okay.
He said he wanted to use the first 5 minutes of the film to get the people he knew were not the target audience to walk out, and then the film can actually start. So he kind of expected an early reaction. But what do you expect, from your viewers going in? How can you really put your finger on the pulse and know that after so many times you may even be desensitized to some of the things that are happening because you've seen it so many times?
Mhm.
How do you feel going in and when you don't get that reaction?
I think that's a good question, and I think it's a comedy, obviously, but it's definitely also a horror film. I mean, people die, and
Sure.
sometimes in a very grisly manner, occasionally, and so
Wink,
and I
wink,
always
George.
yeah, George gets the great kill. And
That's my favorite of the film.
thank
And
you.
I'm
glad.
not here to be telling any lies, but that was definitely my favorite one because, and listen, this is not a kid's show, but George hits him with that "you fucking bitch." Loved it. I totally popped for that.
And that was one that just came spur of the moment, because one of the big things about getting this done, was finding an obstacle course that would let us film.
Yeah.
And so when we found one, and we're just taking a tour and location scouting, and we saw this obstacle, and right away I said, you could something here.
Yeah.
And it came to play. And our effects guy, David Greathouse, fantastic.
Yeah. He's so great. David Greathouse is the best.
Made it work. And I was lucky. At that point, I wasn't going to be in the movie, but as it turned out, I was lucky to be a part of that gag. It was great.
Yeah.
Oh, you were Bogarting is what you were doing. You said, you know what, I'm not putting anybody else here, because you somethinged the hell out of that something. And it was my favorite shot of the film. My favorite line goes to somebody else, and I'll get to that in a moment. But this film is a personal thing for you. I mean, of course it is, right? It's your film, but it's a family affair. There have to be unique challenges that come along with working with family.
It's, I think probably more for George than for me, because the truth is, and the same goes for Jason Tostevin, they weren't cast, but we shot this movie in 12 days, all of it outdoors, and all of it on Columbus Metro Park properties. They, by the way, were so magnificent to work with.
They were. But
it was May, and they were booked after, like, we didn't have the luxury of an extra day, because they had weddings and anniversaries and graduations and things. So we had to be done when we were done. We couldn't reschedule anything. And two of our actors at the day before the big sort of race start scene where Carl gives the speech, that one day the whole cast is there. And if you couldn't make it that day, you couldn't be in the movie. And so we had two actors who couldn't make it that day. One is the person who George wound up playing, and the other is Carl. And Carl was another character we had a very hard time casting. And the actor that we landed on, very, very talented, former military and a personal trainer, perfect. He was so great. He wasn't able to come. Jason stepped in, completely different type. But what he brought to the film, I thought, was perfect. More of like almost sort of a, cult leader vibe, right? And I thought that he delivered not just that speech, but also, the emotional heft of that character really, really well. But he got no direction from me. None. And neither did George. None. Because by the time they were cast, we were days and days into shooting. I had way too much else that I was, completely, I was in over my head. And there are these two guys I completely trust. And I was just like, so do that then. And I just ignored them. So I imagine they may both hate me. I don't know. But like, where everybody else at least got a little upfront time where we talked about, what do you think about your character? What do you think they would, not George and not Jason. They were just on their own.
Well, it helped that I knew sort of who my character was, the guy that he was partly based on.
Yeah.
He was not a nice guy. So I kind of went with that a little bit, so that helped.
Well, first of all, thank you, Christian Rao and Gabriela Marins, for checking in with us. Christian Rao is my partner at Slasher Sports, who, we've been working on this thing for a couple of years now. He's got the college sports thing going on, doing fantastic coverage in college football, basketball, and hopefully baseball when the time comes. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And Gabriela has been a fantastic, I guess what you could say, ambassador for everything that we've been doing down in Brazil. And she's very instrumental in, getting the word out about slasher sports down in Rio de Janeiro. So, muito obrigado, Gabriela. Você é uma beleza.
Years ago, we hosted an exchange student from Brazil years ago. Edinardo. Yeah.
Love it. Academy nominations coming out real soon, George. Yeah. You're not wrong. But let's talk about this cast for a moment. I guess I want to know who you handpicked, who auditioned, how'd you narrow down the field, who have you worked with, who have you not worked with? Because you said you got this thing done in 12 days. All right. You're not Roger Corman. Okay. You don't have to get things done in just a handful of days, but you did it anyway. And was the casting process part of that, or was that all done prior to?
Oh yeah. The 12 days is just the shoot, right? The shoot itself took 12 days. The casting process took a while. We had some help, introducing the idea to a big pool of people. Krista Lively-Soft was our casting director, but Jason Toston again was a big help in getting the word out. And we did all like Zoom. People sent their tapes in, and then we did callbacks via Zoom. And we had a lot of people audition, and some really, really great, really, really great auditions. And and we did. I mean, we spent a lot of time and thought during the audition phase of it. And I had a spreadsheet where, the rest of the team of producers could have a look and sort of tell me what they thought and who they thought were doing well. And then from there, when we started to narrow it down, I really paired people up in my head to make sure that the teams would stand out, would be memorable, so that, you would remember each person, so that sort of each character, like the way their energy kind of bounced off of each other, but we spent a lot of time in casting. Obviously we'd worked with Kat McAlpine before, and Donovan, our son, we'd worked with before.
Yeah.
And then actually one of the two organizers is Reed, is George's brother. So we'd not worked with him before, but I was familiar with him and I knew he would do what I told him to do. So that's a plus. And other than that, had we really worked with anyone before?
No, I don't believe so. And then we had to do a major shift pretty late in the game, because originally we had another actor penciled in for Sonny, who couldn't do it. And so Sylvie had been cast as Stephanie. So then she moved up to play Sonny, and another Gareth Tidball.
Oh, who was so great!
She was so Stephanie, perfect, and it worked out beautifully.
And then also, Brian Spangler, who plays Richard, who plays the other sort of primary villain. We'd not worked with him before, but I'd seen him in a lot of things. He had been in a lot of, actually, Jason Tostovan is a filmmaker as well. He'd been in a lot of Jason's work before. So right away, he was in my head as the perfect person to play Richard. And then when he sent his audition tape in, to be honest with you, I was always a little afraid Richard wasn't very funny. Like on the page, I wasn't sure Richard was as funny as he needed to be, or as funny as everybody else was. I was afraid he wasn't as funny as Stephanie was, and I wanted them to be better sparring partners. But Brian knew what to do to make him funny, and that was great. And then also Tiffany Keeley, who plays you got the husband and wife in the matching tracksuit.
Yes,
both of those two, Randall Greenland and Tiffany Keeley, they had both worked in Jason Tostovan's films before too, so I was familiar with them because of that. And so there were a few that I had sort of reached out to specifically, but
and then we were very fortunate in the pivotal role of Whitey, who's Sonny's dad, kind of the inspiration for her running the race. Todd Covert, you've probably seen him. His resume, he's in so many feature films and commercials. In fact, right now he's filming with Barry Levinson.
Yes, right now.
We're lucky he lives in town. And he came one day and he just killed it. He's
did.
So good.
He did.
So we were blessed there because we've seen his work.
The other one who I didn't even know how I was going to audition for Sad Clown, because it's an important role with no dialogue. And And
All movement, yeah.
I knew in my head he would be an important role. I knew in my head the image of this clown in the woods who didn't ever say anything. I'm like, that's gonna work. But I had no idea how to audition for it. And
Tony
White is a dancer and a choreographer. And instead of like reading any dialogue for me, the audition tape he sent in, he choreographed a small piece to part of the soundtrack to Us. And right away, I'm like, this is it. This is him. This is the guy that I need. And he was so perfect. And also I thought, because he kind of, for me in my head, he's the counterpoint to Mason character was another one. I thought the idea of a tall, skinny, all in white chef with that tall hat would also look so out of place in the woods. So to me, those two characters, one very colorful and silent, and one all white and sort of cartoonish with all of the singing, I thought that they would be a fun balance. And I do think that they worked out really well in that way.
Yep.
Almost feels like there's a dichotomy there between the two, because you think about the chef maybe being a little more action, less talk.
Yeah.
And the clown being a little more talk and less action, or maybe at least some harmless action. But it almost feels like the sad clown could be maybe unconsciously the face of the film.
Yeah. People
I think about.
I mean, you have people obviously that are afraid of clowns, first of all, and he's so colorful with his wig and his outfit, and as you're right, it jumps out of the woods. But people are just drawn to him. In fact, I will tell you, there's a scene. I'll just say it's a reaction scene in the film where it's focused on sad clown. People in the crew were crying.
Yeah, they did.
The day that we filmed that.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, they were actually tearing up.
Yeah, Tony is amazing. He's an amazing talent.
He almost has a Harpo Marx kind of charm to him. And I really don't think there's a listener to this show who's going to know who the hell that is.
Quick Google.
Yeah. We'll give you time to Google, and done. So these characters, played by, I keep bringing up Kat McAlpine.
Yeah.
Because I mean, first of all, she and Jim are the introduction to this film. If you've never seen the short film for whatever reason, this is your introduction. And Jim's done a ton of short films, but this cold open, as it should, like I said, establishes the rules of the universe. And by that I mean we see a duo of racers, possibly outlandish outfits for everybody, and possibly death involved. Who knows? Maybe. But it does this while leaving the mystery intact. We don't know why the thing that happens, and somebody gets their somethinged. But we do know, in fact, that it does happen. So Kat was in the original short film, like you said, preceded the feature. Jim was not, and that's because the aforementioned role of Mason was specifically written for Donovan, who was the male counterpart in the short. I love the duo. Both sets of duos, by the way. I could have watched a whole feature surrounding just the two of them. I thought Kat was fun. She actually gave me thoughts of maybe Jillian Del Toro of Workaholics fame.
Yeah. Used to watch.
Very funny gal, and
funny.
She's immediately who I thought. And if my eyesight hadn't been just a little bit better, I would think, wow, they got Jillian Del Toro. Very, very similar facial features, very similar behaviors, but both individual in their own right. And Jim really fed off her vibe, and I love the fact that you cast him, because this was just an amazing job by both of them. Had this been the standalone short, I would have been 1000% happy with it. And I do love a good cold open. It's a story in itself, like you said.
Yep.
If it stands alone. And I'm thinking about films, the likes of When a Stranger Calls.
Oh, yeah.
When a Stranger Calls could have been a short film on its own.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that it wasn't. But once you open the door and you see Pappy O'Daniel standing there, that, this is, you've done a really good thing. But no spoilers. All right. I told you I was going to give you my favorite line from this entire film, and it's from another strong character. And you already said it. Gareth Tidball. Okay. She says, have you seen a couple of runners, nerdy man bleeding with a skinny woman, not yet bleeding?
Yeah.
The delivery of that.
She
is so matter of fact with that. Yeah. So matter of fact, so snarky. And
Yeah,
I love her
her
character.
delivery was just perfect. She
It
was
was.
so good.
It was.
Yeah, her delivery just kind of condescending, down her nose to everyone. You're all idiots. Yeah, I loved it. Loved
You're lucky I'm even here.
it.
That's right.
Hope, George, I think you've done a really good thing with Obstacle Corps, and I can't
Thank
wait for
you.
the rest of the universe to see it. We know what you have coming up in February, but what happens beyond? What are the long-term goals for the film?
We have a couple of more festivals. We have I know we're going to be in Horror Realm Con, which is in Pittsburgh. That's the first weekend in March, and we have a couple of more festivals to hear from. Another one that we feel pretty confident that we'll get to be in, and then right now we are looking for distribution. So fingers crossed by summer or by October, hopefully we'll be streaming and people can watch it everywhere.
Gosh, I hope so. And thank you, Colby Peterson, former guest and great friend of mine. We're going to be meeting up for tacos tomorrow. That son of a bitch. All right, guys, before we slide into the gag reels, you want to tell everybody where they can find you on your socials?
Yeah, well, you can find us at MaddWolf.com is our main website. We do a lot of film criticism, some fun. You can also find us MaddWolf Columbus on Facebook and Instagram, at MaddWolf on Twitter, and then we have separate socials for the film.
Yeah, Obstacle Corps X is our Twitter handle, and then Obstacle Corps Film on Facebook and Instagram.
As we ride into the sunset, I want to thank Hope Madden and George Wolf, collectively MaddWolf, for their time spent here on Slasher Sports Cinema, and on behalf of George and Hope, as well as the crew of Slasher Sports, Christian, Suki, Steve, Sean, and myself, Billy Graves. Happy New Year. Now, go forth and may you drink the blood of your enemies from the skulls of their children.